Friday. Can you see me? Can you hear me? You're late to the early crew. Don't worry. It is all good. How is everyone doing? What is going on your beautiful Friday evenings in the winter time? Hope you're having a great time. So, I do not have my Christmas decorations up here yet. I have a tapestry that I'm ordering that's gonna like be like a Christmas background tapestry for like, hopefully, I don't know how big it's gonna be. Like, I want to cover up most of this and have it be a tapestry and then like lights, and I hope that'll be cool. I guess I could also hang something on my door too. Then I'm thinking about it. I could put a wreath or something on my door. I don't know if people would be into that. Also, I have this is like a Volcom sweater. Look at this. Just complete turtleneck territory. This is so warm and so soft. I'm like, I love this. It's the best. I also decided to try to wear jewelry more often because I never wear anything. How is everyone doing? Yes, we are live. It is warning. Why is it saying my bitrate is 200? That's not good. Oh, wait, no, it's good. We're good. So, hi, everyone. All right. So, I'm so glad so glad you guys are here. If Kristen comes back at some point, I hope that your slosh goes well. For people who don't know what a slosh is a version of a munch, which is a social BDSM gathering. And for a slosh, that happens in a bar, and it usually is 21 plus only as a result. So I hope you have fun with that, Kristen. And then we also answered Julian's question already about doing a video on asexuality, particularly as a young person coming to terms with it. My teenage son seems to be asexual, and as a father, I'm really a bit of a loss about it. Or I'm really at a bit of a loss about it. That's the phrase. And I did recommend a book just for people on the chat who maybe want to know more about it. I do have a whole, because this is like book recommendations are coming up a lot again recently, in the FAQ down below, which you guys should read with the rules, FAQ down below. And in that FAQ, I have multiple different recommendations for poly books, kink books. I don't think I have anything for asexuality in particular, because to be honest, it's only in the last like 2 years that like books about asexuality have started to be published. There's really only like 5 of them, so there's not really enough for me to have a whole list for it yet. But tons of recommendations for like, even rope bondage as well, skill books, power exchange relationships, lots and lots of things in there. So please check that out. But the book that I recommended is How to Be Ace, a memoir of growing up asexual. It's by Rebecca Burgess, and it's actually like really popular. It has almost like 3,000 reviews on Goodreads. I don't know what it has on Google. Does Google have book reviews? It probably does. It probably scrapes all the reviews from all the other websites and just mushes them together. But that I thought would be a good book for like people navigating asexuality for the first time. I'm glad you guys like the hair. I literally just put some dry shampoo in it and then put it in a hair clip, and there we are. That was the process for today, because I was out. I spent way too much money on Christmas decor, and I got most of the stuff for downstairs figured out. There's a couple things that are out. I actually wrote a list earlier of like things that I still need to get. I need to get like an actual Christmas tree, because I have a little mini desk Christmas tree that I used in the background for videos last year, and I need like an actual like proper tree. By the way, chat, preference, real tree or fake tree? Explain why. I have to just sort of elucidate my own bias here. I have always had a fake tree because I lived mostly in the South, where like Christmas tree farms are not so much a thing. Maybe they are these days, but when I lived in Florida, Christmas tree farms were not really a thing. And so we always had a fake tree growing up. There was one year that we had a real tree, and I gotta be honest, did not live up to the hype. I like having a tree I can have up for exactly as long as I want it to be up. I basically want to dom the tree, is what I'm saying. That's basically what I'm saying, right? Like, I want to be able to control when the tree is in my house and not have to, like, recycle it Do I have lipstick on my teeth? That's gonna be really bothersome if I do. No, I don't. Okay, good. I fixed it. Crisis averted. A fiber optic tree? Okay, wait. What is that? Is it like a rainbow colored tree? I don't know. I also don't really have a way to, I guess if I had a real tree, I could always just like put it in the yard waste. But I don't know, it just like, if I could have a fake tree I can use for 20 years, you know, or like even longer than that. Like my family's tree, we've had 2 trees the entire time that I've been alive for, and one lasted for like 15 years, and then one they're probably going to keep for the rest of forever. My grandparents have had the same tree for like 40 years probably. They don't even put up a tree anymore, but they still have one. But yeah. Anyways, now that we're getting into things, I will just kind of briefly say, if you are new here, hi, hello, welcome, please, 18 plus only. This is an adult live stream. We talk about adult topics, which means it's not a place for minors. Please read the rules and FAQ below. Be kind to everyone. Be polite. This is an FAQ, so come and ask whatever questions you want to ask. It could be related to BDSM stuff, poly, asexuality, whatever, and I go through questions in the order they come in. If you want to make sure I answer your question, go ahead and use a super chat. You can do it through YouTube, or you can go to Streamlabs below, and that will also work. Oh yeah, there's also like the fire of having a real tree. That's also true. All right. I was wondering if you would consider doing a video on Dollification. It's one of my favorite kinks. When I ever meet subs and Dom and Master and Mistress, they know nothing about Dollification. That's even the case for many in Discord, IMView, etc. I think if you could do a video on it, it could help people who are new. It says no, but if you've been new to Dollification or know next to nothing about Dollification, I actually do already have a video about Dollification, believe it or not. I already have a video on Dollification, and it's quite old. I don't know if you can really find it unless you search for it on my channel, but I think it is literally just called BDSM 101 Dollification. Maybe I should revisit it for this year. Maybe I should do, let me know what you guys think. Should I either react to my old video on Dollification and add new information that way and have it be kind of like a fun react video? Or should I just like redo the subject? Keep in mind, if I redo the video, it will be 25 minutes long. I think the original one I have is probably between 8 to 12. Because I got to include all the subsections, all the caveats, all the safety information. I got a like really like aggressive comment the other day about like, they were very like, their attitude was like, oh my god, why are your videos so long? Like, they just typed brevity with an exclamation point. And they were like, Jesus, make your videos shorter. And I'm like, I don't know what you want me to say. Now I timestamp all of my videos, so that way you can skip around to whatever section. If you don't want to hear me say something, you can skip past it. You can listen at 2 times speed. Like, I try to get to all the information that I think I need to get to in a timely manner, but also I am just a long-winded person, and some YouTubers are like 4 minutes in and out, and some people are more like me, and we gotta like, I feel like I've just been trained by the internet at this point to repeat myself to really make sure I get my point across in a video, so I can be a little bit repetitive, and I realize that, but that's also like just on purpose, because I realize that if I don't do that, a lot of people are going to miss the point, or they're going to, like, I feel like I just need to re-emphasize things sometimes. I don't really know why longer videos are bad. So that's all the thing, right? Is like people are just like, oh, it's long and that's bad. But like the way that I listen to YouTube videos is like I put videos on and then I'm cleaning, I'm doing chores, I'm working, answering emails. Like I always listen to YouTube videos more or less, unless it's like a, you know, a sit-down popcorn experience of like an H-Bomber Guy video or something. And even then, if I watch that video again, it'll be on in the background. But sometimes the first time I sit and watch it. All right, I'm gonna make sure people on YouTube or Twitter, the other website. Okay, there we go. It was like not giving a video preview, and I was like, what's going on there? Give me 1 second. I'm actually... Okay, it says my stream is excellent. I just want to make sure we're not going to have any problems. I'm also really bad at titling my live streams. That's like my least favorite part is like, what do I title a live stream, honestly? What do I title a live stream? Oh, thank you, Mr. Beansman. Do you have any advice for dealing with... Oh, there we go.
Do you have any advice for dealing with feelings of bitterness towards pro-doms amongst the frustrations of struggling to find female doms in my local community? I want to be supportive of sex work, but not having any luck leads me to scapegoat them.
Oh, well, I guess what I would start out by saying is I think that's really great that you're doing that internal process of thinking about, these are my feelings about something. I know it is like unfair or doesn't really match reality. So like, what can I do to maybe like change my thoughts or like approach it in a different way? I would say that one thing you have to remember with professional dominance is, yes, there are a lot of pro doms that are also lifestylers, but at the same time, a lot of them wouldn't be lifestylers if they weren't making money off of it. Not all doms are this way. Some doms are just like, they're that way through and through, and they would be in the lifestyle even if they didn't get paid like to do it as a job as well. But a lot of them, like, I don't know, like, especially when we're looking at online numbers for pro doming, it's probably gonna be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 75 to 80%, I would wager, would not do stuff that was BDSM related if it wasn't also a job. They might enjoy a little bit of it in their private lives. They may be like getting choked in the bedroom. They may like hair pulling, whatever, maybe a little bit of spanking. But like in their everyday lives, they're actually really dominant. And so I think you have to separate between pro doms and like lifestyle people, and that people who choose to do things in a pro way aren't necessarily like removing themselves from like offering what they do for free in like a lifestyle sense. I will say as well that I think another, I'm not really sure how I want to phrase it because it's like an idea I'm coming up with off the top of my head, is there are a lot of reasons behind why somebody would prefer to be a professional over being in the everyday community. And I think part of that is because it's sort of like this issue of like female dominance are really rare. So if they are part of the lifestyle anyways, they get kind of snapped up really quickly by like the demand from a lot of partners, especially submissive men who only want to submit to women. Like that, like the ratio there is so off that it's really hard to make sure you're staying within a reasonable amount of partnerships. And so like I think it's more like almost an internal process of like, maybe what I would do if I was struggling with this is I would try to come up with like as many reasons as possible for why a dominant is not in the lifestyle, and not just decide it's because like, oh, they only want to do this for money. Like, how else can I think about like somebody's decision to be a pro dom versus being in the lifestyle? And also like, does that really serve you, right? Like, does being bitter or jealous about it and like holding on to that feeling really improve your life? Does it improve your chances of finding a partner? And if that feeling isn't really serving you, then maybe you just gotta acknowledge it and let it go and say, hey, like, pro doms, I don't have to like them. Because this is the thing, right? You don't have to like anything you don't like. You can be neutral on pro doms. You don't have to be like, pro doms are the best and I really like them. I personally really like pro doms a lot because I think they do a lot of like heavy lifting that doesn't always get recognized in terms of like, you know, they are pro doms and they're doing BDSM for a service, but they also tend to do a lot of other work as an adjunct to that in terms of like emotions and kind of, there's a lot of talk online about sort of also you're a pro dom, but you're also sort of like somebody's therapist. Like there's just a lot of emotional work that gets done in that space. And I really, really appreciate pro doms, but I could see why somebody wouldn't necessarily appreciate them as much. So I think you can be neutral on them and like support sex work as a general concept and want it to be decriminalized and all of that stuff. But you don't have to personally like or agree with pro doms. And like, I have my own issues with pro doms sometimes. You guys have seen my videos, right? Like the ones that are walking a naked guy around New York City, or the ones that, you know, are walking a white man on a leash in the middle of a historically black college's rush week or whatever it was. Like, that kind of stuff is like unnecessary and kind of hurtful to BDSM as a whole, and I try to call that stuff out. But I also don't blame all of pro-doming for it, because I know it tends to be a subsection of it where they're not genuinely very kinky themselves. It's mostly as a job, and they're not really part of a community that's like holding them accountable or like teaching them what proper behavior is. So yeah, so that's my opinion on that. But I think it's just a very difficult thing to navigate, is like dealing with, you know, it could be a feeling about professional dominance, it could be towards male submissives, it could be like, we all kind of struggle with, like, I think in some ways our own group or sub-label within BDSM, where we don't always know how to deal with our own feelings with them, but they are kind of part of our family tree, and so we do have to learn how to get along with them to some extent, right? Like, I'm not a big fan of a lot of, you know, there was, I don't know how to even like label these people, because they're not really fake doms, but like I kind of get riled up with people who are like over invested in like being old guard, right? Like people that are like slaves. All women are submissive or should be submissive, and everyone that goes into a dungeon, you know, that's a submissive, that's a woman, needs to keep her eyes downcast and be naked and is not allowed to be in the furniture, yada yada. Like, people have this very invested sense of like protocol of how BDSM should be. Like, I don't really get along with them, and I don't really necessarily like them personally, but I can still respect them and be like, okay, go do your kink over there, right? This is like really the highlight of like, your kink is not my kink, but your kink is still okay, essentially. That's essentially what it is. Okay, anyways, I'm going to answer questions in the order they come in. I am going to go ahead and go back now and answer some more questions that I probably missed. Okay, we answered the one about dollification. I think, okay, great. I think I lost a little first bit of the chat, which is unfortunate, because I saw that you guys were asking some good questions in there, but I think they missed the very, very first part of it. There's a slash near me tomorrow, but my sub and I can't make it because we're too busy. Aw. Well, hopefully you can make it in the future. It does suck when schedules do not align with things. Hello from Plant City, Florida. Wait, is Plant City an actual place in Florida? Oh my god, is it real? Wait, there is a place called there's a place called Plant City, Florida. It's between Brandon and Lakeland. Oh, I see where it is. It's not, I thought that sounded like a panhandle name to me, but it's not in the panhandle. That's funny. All right, I guess, yeah, like, hello to Plant City, Florida. I wonder, oh, it's named after the railroad developer Henry B. Plant. It's also the winter strawberry capital of the world. The more you know. The more you know about Florida. As we all should, genuinely. Florida, what is it? There should be a book called Florida, What Is It? I'll just take that idea. I'll giving it away for free there. No copyright. Yeah, I answered the one about dollification, but there's no real detailed information about how to proceed other than fashion. Where can I find more info? Oh gosh, there was a YouTube channel, and I don't know, because there was another creator who was on Instagram at the same time that I was kind of coming up on Instagram, like kind of around when I first started making YouTube content. Oh, thank you. I appreciate Uncle Star. I don't know if that is related to a question, but I will keep my eye out for it in case it is. But there was, I'm going to try and find it on my phone here real quick. But there was a content creator who was on Instagram and I was, and I think they also did kitten play, but they were also, oh my gosh, it's so funny. I am literally, if I search for dollification, my video comes up. Can I show you this to you guys? I think everything on there is good. So my video from 5 years ago comes up. Look at that. Love it. I remember that t-shirt. 50K views actually. So, okay. Apparently that is easy to find. But I'm not I guess maybe she probably deleted her channel. It's been a long time. It's actually kind of crazy how much of this is like not related to Dollification, literally at all. Because I was gonna recommend that channel, but I guess they're probably not around anymore. If this doesn't turn anything up, I don't know if anyone would remember who that was at all, but I remember them, and they were how I was introduced to Dollification, and I guess they're not making content anymore. I have no idea what they're... I just kind of unfollowed all of the like pet play and like age play and like Dollification accounts that I used to follow on Instagram because I was afraid of like getting banned by proxy. So I only really follow like businesses more or less on my Instagram account these days, and like there's a couple of people I keep up with, but mostly it's businesses. But the one person I know that does a Dollification class, and I don't know if you could find this online, would be there's a person, no question, just donating to support the channel. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So, name's Danorama. I personally do not like his classes because I think it's just a guy narrating a slideshow. Like, there's not really, like... He's done it for so long, and, like, pretty much everything is on the slideshow, and, like, he kind of has an ego, let's be honest. He has an ego about him. He's, like, one of those guys where, like, every scene he does at the dungeon is like 3 women under the age of 20, and like he's in his 50s, and like it kind of just seems like all very ego driven, and like that's not really like my thing. But to each of their own. Danorama does have a class he teaches on Dollification. I don't know if there's like a recording of it or a way to get the slideshow, but he definitely has content about it. Outside of that, you're right, finding information about Dollification is very difficult, but this is the thing, right? If you have a niche kink, this is my advice to you. If you're into like Dollification, if you're into maybe more like fringe, unusual pets, like you want to be a frog, you want to be a bird, and you're like, oh my gosh, how do I do this? I would think about it as actually being a positive thing. And it's really easy, especially when you're new, to get really invested in this idea of like, I need to do BDSM properly. I need to do BDSM the right way. And so that means I need to find very detailed information about how to do this thing the way other people do it.
$5. Hey Evie, I'm learning a lot quickly, and thanks for your contribution to education. I am curious. Is pet space a thing like dom space? Like I can feel a primal urges, but feel like it won't activate because I am not in the right mind.
I don't know why it cut off at the very end there, but I will answer that. It's a good question. So like pet space, sub/dom space, like primal mindset, I will remember that. Brevard County, home of the Kennedy Space Center, checking in, finally able to catch a live chat again. It's been too long. Well, hello, welcome. I am so glad you're here. I do remember the name. I recognize the name. Glad you could make it. I have not been to the Kennedy Space Center, which is very weird. I'm not sure why we never went on a field trip to there, because it feels like a very obvious field trip opportunity. I feel like I shouldn't say where I used to live in Florida, but I lived in a suburb of Miami, is what I will say. I lived there when I was 5, so like, it's not like I have any, like, you can't go there and like talk to like, you know, the people who knew me in high school. Like, you can't, that's not revealing anything tantalizing. Maybe you could find my old like Girl Scout troop. That would be about the most salacious information you could get out of somebody who knew me from Florida. But anyways, so to think about like niche kinks, and maybe I should retitle the stream and like maybe make this a little bit more focused. Can I edit the stream title when I'm live? I think I can. Oh, it deleted my emojis from the title. Oh, I had little emojis in the title that were cute. So when you have niche kinks, think of it as an opportunity to be your own trailblazer and trendsetter. Because when you're in a kink, like if you're into pet play and you're like a kitten player, a pony player, a puppy player, if you're into ABDL, yes, it can be nice because there are a lot of resources for that already that will tell you this is what you're supposed to do, this is how you're supposed to act, this is what scenes are supposed to look like. But that leads to a lot of supposed tos. And it means that whatever path you're going down with your kink is whatever other path other people have set out for you. If you're into puppy play, that means you got to get the Mr. S leather neoprene hood. It means you got to get the rubber tail. It means you got to get the bandanas. It means you got to do this barking stuff. It means you're probably like a pit bull or a husky or a German shepherd. If you're a kitten player, you got to have the fluffy ears. You got to have the ribbon collar. You got to have this, that, and the other. If you're a pony player, you got to do this. You got to do that. And that can be nice from a community building perspective, but it means you're not really making it yours. And this is something that I fell into as a puppy player. I was really trying to do puppy play at first the way that other people were doing it, because when I was coming up, there were females who were kitten players and gay men who were puppy players, and they didn't really overlap a whole lot. I was really unusual, actually, at the time online. And this is not like, ooh, I'm so special, but like just to be clear of like how much even in the last like not even a decade things have changed. Is back in the day, everyone that was a female online talking about pet play was a kitten player. Sometimes you'd get kind of like kitten littles, or you'd get people that were like other kind of like cutesy feminine pets, but like very rarely would you see another puppy player. And so I had to kind of model what I was trying to do off of what the gay male puppy players were doing. But I mostly felt like not like myself doing that. Like I had a Mr. S hood, and like it didn't really feel like me. It felt like too masculine. It felt too big. I had, you know, the knee pads and the bandana were fine. Those were cute accessories, and I felt like that sort of helped my headspace. And, you know, like the rubber tail as well wasn't really my thing. I liked stuff that was a little bit more fluffy. I liked stuff that was a little bit more feminine, a little bit more like what the kitten players were doing, because that felt like me, right? Because, and we have surveys about this, actually, interestingly enough, within the pet play community, the majority of people that are pet players, that are puppies, are, as I've already kind of stated, pit bulls, German shepherds, huskies, golden retrievers, labradors. Like, they tend to be more like bigger, like man's best friend type dogs, whereas I'm a toy breed. I'm a lap dog. I'm a snoozy lap dog. I'm like a Pomeranian. I'm like, what are some other lap dogs? Like a Chihuahua, kind of. Like, I'm not really Chihuahua. Honestly, the dog that fits me best is honestly like Bandit is basically my spirit animal. I gotta be honest, like cute, happy to be around, just like fluffy, like kind of likes toys, kind of like treats, but mostly likes people, mostly likes humans. And so I had to kind of forge my own path eventually after a while of like trying to fit into what other people wanted me to do. And I think it actually maybe would have been better if I could have done it my own way from the very beginning, as opposed to trying to do what other people said I could do. Like, there's sort of having a bare bones amount of information of like, this is what this is. These are the general guidelines of what a scene like this might look like. And maybe more what you're looking for is like, okay, I want to see an example of what this looks like. How does a relationship focused around this go? And if you're in the chat still, I would love to like continue this talk about dollification further, because I think I can maybe, if it's a matter of like making another video, I definitely have a lot of ideas for like how to do in a scene. I definitely have heard stories of how people do this within the relationship dynamic. There's overlap as well between dollification and several other different kinks too. You know, degradation, human furniture, bimboification, lots of stuff like that too. And I would love to kind of figure out where your overlaps are, and maybe we can kind of talk about it a little bit further. But I can't really help, and like I can't make content that doesn't exist yet. I can't give you recommendations for a thing that's not really out there. So I'm sorry I don't have anything else I can offer to you other than look out for Danorama, and it is spelled the exact way that it sounds. It's Dan-A-Rama, like panorama but with a D. And yeah. Making kink yours is honestly what I love most about kink. I'm not freeing myself from societal norms that only need to adopt different norms that are equally strict. Yeah, that's also part of it as well, right? It's like, and this doesn't really happen so much with like niche kinks, but if you are part of a community, this is like a big deal with like pet play, is people would be very adamant about like, you're doing it wrong, you're not doing this, and so your pet play isn't valid, and like people being very policing towards other people's expressions of kink, which I don't find to be a very nice thing to do, honestly. I have tons of videos about pet play as well. I have a playlist on my channel of all my pet play videos, and I think it's my pet play and ABDL playlist, I think is what it's called, and all my videos for both of those are in there. So on the subject of dollification and like niche kinks, I almost sort of like the idea of doing a dollification video for like Christmas time, because it's sort of like nutcrackers and like the nutcracker, like the actual like the ballet kind of fits in with that, and you know, ballerinas and like music boxes, and like I think there's a lot of thematic stuff about the holiday season that kind of works with dollification, and I would love to talk about that, or maybe do like an article about it, because I think that niche kinks deserve to be represented, and this is why I talk about kinks that I don't personally have, but that I learn about and I try to share information about. They're not going to be perfect, they're not going to be like a deep dive based on personal experience, but things like, you know, tickling or figging or ABDL relationships, or, you know, those kinds of things that don't really get a lot of positive attention, like totally deserve attention, deserve people to know about them, or like damsel in distress stuff, or like being a princess, or being a dominant little, like those aren't things that I do myself, but they deserve discussion. And I always hope that people don't get upset with me that I'm talking about things outside of my personal experience, but like, unless I can find someone to interview, which is like, you know, pretty difficult to do for certain kinks, I can only really rely on like what my observations are, and like, you know, kind of understanding why somebody would be into that, what people are into, like how they do it, and like those observations. But yeah, I do have a lot of pet play videos, it's true. All right, I'm gonna finish changing the title for this, and then the other question I got from the super chat was about like pet space and that kind of thing. All right, title is changed. There we go. Now it is accurate to the topic at hand. Now no one can get mad at me after the stream's done about how my title doesn't match the subjects I covered. I can't help it. I come up with ideas, and sometimes you guys completely fucking ignore them. Sometimes we go along those routes. So, pet spaces is interesting. And I have strong opinions about this. And my way of thinking about it is not the only way. This is just my opinion. Because I always think of language as about clarity and achieving a certain goal. That's what I want to do. I want to achieve the goal of clear communication. And there is a term that is called pet space that is a derivative of the term subspace. So first we got to know, okay, what's subspace? Subspace is an altered state of mind you go into sometimes when you do BDSM. There are different levels of it. I personally make a separation between headspace and subspace. So headspace is like, I'm acting, I'm going along with the role, I feel like I'm in the role that I'm playing. So if you don't consider like submission or slavery or whatever to be like who you are on a core level, and it's something that you are doing in a scene, or you adopt a certain level of doing it while you're doing the scene, that's like getting into your headspace and getting into like the mind frame of like, I'm doing BDSM, I am submitting to this person, they are doing XYZ thing to me, I am doing this thing for them, yada yada. Then there is a different thing that is called subspace, which can happen over the course of a scene, usually either for like intense impact play, sometimes humiliation, and for rope bondage as well, in which case it is called rope space is the term that gets used. And essentially it is an endorphin rush, an adrenaline high, a spaciness, a mental change, a pronounced noticeable mental change that happens when you do a scene, typically related to a pronounced alteration in the way that you are perceiving reality. I would liken it to something like a runner's high, deep meditation. If you get really like loopy after doing a really physically intense thing, like after, you know, running a marathon or you know, biking for 20 miles or something, it's really just when you have an altered state of mind that's like insignificant and different. Some people go into that right away. Some people, like, as soon as the first time they get hit, like their body's primed and they just go right into the altered state. That can be good, and a lot of people enjoy subspace, and their goal for getting into a scene is to get to subspace, and they really like that feeling. For other people, it feels very scary. It feels like a loss of control, loss over your body. Not everyone likes it. Not everyone can go into it consistently or very often. I would say I've had maybe like 3 experiences in the time that I've been doing BDSM of like genuine deep, maybe actually more than that. Maybe it's like 4 or 5. I've had probably 3 deep subspace moments and like 2 lighter subspace moments. I've had little instances where I felt myself going towards that, but I didn't really get in there. And part of that is because I'm not really a masochist. And so the way I relate to pain is different, and it tends to be more of like an endurance, you can't break me kind of a thing. And so after a scene, I will be like a little bit kind of silly or goofy or loopy. But it's not really like subspace to me because my brain doesn't feel the way that it feels during subspace. Like, it can almost kind of feel like an out-of-body experience is what I would say. So all of that is to outline subspace is definitely different from getting into headspace. However, what I have seen with terms like pet space, little space, and so on is people are synonymizing a derivative of subspace with headspace. Like, headspace and subspace are kind of meshed together, at least insofar as it comes to pet space and little space. With pet space and little space, I consider those terms to be more like the latter category rather than just like getting into the role of acting like a pet, of acting like a younger age, or whatever it is you do when you're little. There is getting into the role and acting in accordance with your role, but still kind of like, it's like when you meditate, this is always the example I use, there's like actually meditating, and then there's thinking about meditating. There is, you're starting, you're in your pose, you're starting your square breathing or whatever it is that you do, you're scanning your body, and you're sitting and thinking, like, I'm meditating, and you're kind of fighting, letting the thoughts go through you, but you're not really there yet. Getting into actual subspace, pet space, little space, etc., is when you get to that point of actual like flow in your meditation where you are just like genuinely really sitting there, not holding on to any thoughts, letting them pass over you. Like, your actual brain waves change as a result of that as well. At least it can for very deep meditation. I believe I can't remember if it's theta waves. It's been a long time since I've taken any sort of neuropsychology class, so I don't remember if they're theta waves or what they're called. But there is a change there. And so headspace is much more like, I'm just kind of play acting. And so I don't agree with thinking of pet space and little space that way. I think it more of like, if you're in pet space, it's when you genuinely start to feel like you're a pet and you stop having those like autonomic or automatic human thoughts of like, I'm going to go do this and I'm going to do this. It's when you genuinely start to see the world like through the eyes of like being an animal or being a pet, and it's very instinctual and it's very flowy, and you're not like as conscious or as in control as maybe you would be if you were kind of more mechanically going through the behaviors. And similarly with little space, I think there's a difference between like play acting and like acting like your little self and doing little things and genuinely like going into a different pronounced mental state. So pet space is definitely a thing. I hope that's a good definition. And interesting. I always thought I get into subspace very easily, but I guess it's more headspace. I get into easily, not subspace. I mean, this is just my interpretation of it. Like, everyone's going to have their own opinions about, headspace versus subspace. That is just what I was taught and what I learned subspace to be. Because I think, this is why I think it's important to make the distinction. Maybe I should be clear. Is when you are dealing with subspace, like genuine mind-altered subspace, that requires something very different in your negotiations that's worth considering. And if you tell someone, because you think that your subspace, like you are confusing subspace with headspace, you can say, oh, I don't go nonverbal during subspace. I'm like completely lucid. Like, you can still talk to me, whatever. That could potentially mean when you get into like legit subspace, and you go nonverbal, or you can only giggle, or you start like speaking in tongues or whatever, which is like kind of what I do sometimes, like, your negotiation process didn't really work that well because you thought you were asking or telling about one thing, but really it was something else. And so I think you have to be very careful about delineating between when you're in like a headspace and you really feel like you're in your role, and like the kind of deeper part of subspace, because of how much it can affect your ability to communicate, to negotiate, to stick up for your own boundaries, to realize when you're in a dangerous amount of pain, especially if you're kind of in a more like adrenaline informed version of subspace, dealing with pain tolerance and that can result in some messiness in terms of if you play really hard as a masochist and you go into subspace pretty deeply, like you might end up doing some scenes that cause you like permanent damage or permanent marks, Primal urges, I'm not sure about. I think that would be probably different from pet space, but I don't really think there's any sort of like wider linguistic understanding in the kink community of like, this is what this means. So I can't really say anything definitively about like primal urges, but I would say like, if you were starting to feel like, if you're just like, the thing that I would compare it to, and this is not going to be helpful for everyone, but when I get into subspace, it feels almost exactly the way that it feels when I start to feel high after I've eaten an edible. I don't know why that is. I don't know if something about BDSM acts on like, what is it, the cannabinoid receptors in your brain. I don't know if those are connected or not, but when I'm just acting out in my headspace of like, I'm performing submissive actions, I'm being submissive, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, that is very different from like, okay, everything's like, okay, I'm doing my breathing, I'm relaxing, I'm keeping my shoulders back, I'm not tensing up, I'm trying to work through the pain, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoosh. Like, that's the sound I could equate to, is like, whoosh. Like, it almost feels like all of the air being let out, like all the stress going away, and then suddenly feeling like this like total body relaxation almost, and like your brain just feels different all of a sudden is what I would feel like. I don't know if that's really helpful as an explanation for other people. I don't know if other people feel that way during the subspace. I would love to know for people who experience subspace, because not everyone does, and like it's totally up to you. I don't know, there's dopamine receptors and then there's cannabinoid. I'm aware of dopamine. I'm aware of what dopamine is. This is a different thing. And I said that because edibles contain the cannabis, the devil's lettuce product. I've now cursed this video, haven't I? Because I've said the YouTube words. I don't like you talking about drugs on this platform. It's legal where I live. I've only ever had it when it's been legal for me to consume. I'm not genuinely, I'm not really a rule breaker. I'm very like, as maybe a surprise, because I am a citizen. I'm not really a rule breaker that much, to be honest. I just don't really want to break rules. No, I know what dopamine is. I'm talking about a different thing. Am I just... Okay. Because cannabinoids are the compounds in your brain. Isn't there a receptor in your brain for... Yeah, okay. There's cannabinoid receptors. That's what I'm talking about. CB1 and CB2. Wikipedia knows what I'm talking about. I'm not yelling at you guys. I'm just like, am I crazy? No. Dopamine is a thing. But also, it's not just dopamine, right? Like, the cocktail of chemicals that happen when you're experiencing an intense sensation is way more than just, like, dopamine hit. That's like a very simplified version of it, and we don't really, there's not really a lot of funding, as it turns out, in the academic world for BDSM studies where people are hitting each other in a laboratory. Would love for that to be a thing one day, because I think having information about how to engage in this kind of stuff safely is so important. I would love to see more actual research about this, but cannabinoid receptors are in fact a thing, is the point that I'm making. Subspace just feels like the world goes quiet inside and out. Endocannabinoid receptors. Okay. Oh, the endocannabinoid system is what it's called. The ECS. I love how we just have like specific receptors for this stuff. Isn't that fascinating? Our brain's weird. Brains are great. Subspace feels like the world's going quiet inside and out. Yeah, I definitely resonate with that. Do you have... Oh, my like stream is covering this up. Okay. Do you have any thoughts on using kink in search of catharsis? Would you consider that related or analogous to subspace? I think some people find catharsis through subspace, but I don't think they're always the same. And that's a really good question. I know I'm skipping ahead technically, but it is related to what we were just talking about, so I think I'm going to roll with that. So let's think about catharsis for a second. I definitely do, most of my impact play that I do is generally like an emotionally intense experience that can involve a level of catharsis, either physically or emotionally. It typically does not result in subspace for me because the kind of relief that I get from it. And there's a really, I think it's at Polar or Team, I think it's Team Soup has a class they do about catharsis play. And I should look at my notes again for this because I'm having this memory of them talking about subspace versus catharsis and like the relationship between the two, and I don't remember exactly what they said about it. But catharsis tends to be this more like intense emotional like upheaval and experience, and then afterwards you kind of feel like you've worked through all of it and you've gotten to the point that you wanted to. That could be maybe you're having trouble crying and you just want to be able to cry and let go. It could be that you want also I have an interview coming up that I just recorded, not online. I just finished editing it. It's with Vistam and I, and we're going to be talking about catharsis and ordeal play. So watch out for that. It's probably going to be in 2 more videos. I think is when I'm going to have that one go up. But there is sort of this intense emotional outlet that comes with catharsis play, and when you are in subspace, because of how it can make your body feel and how much you can change things. Sometimes you don't always get into that catharsis because it's sort of like this, like, for me at least, I don't know about everyone's subspace, it tends to be a very like happy, floaty, giggly, like it's painful but not really painful. You just want more and more and more. That is not generally something that is conducive to catharsis because you're detached from the experience. You're now detached from it mentally. And typically with catharsis, you want to go through it. So subspace is like the going over it or the going around it option. And catharsis is the going through it option. You want to feel that intensity. You want to feel, you know, how... Oh, can you go a little bit into top guilt? I recently topped for the first time. We both had a great time, but about 2 days later, I started feeling guilty about some of the actions I did. Yes, I would love to talk about that. I will finish this thought on catharsis. So catharsis is you want to go through the experience. And that can be a really positive thing emotionally at the end of the day because it might mean that your catharsis is like you have this kind of dangling emotion from the rest of the day that you've been dealing with, like you're angry about work, or maybe you went through a breakup, or you know your friend said something really mean to you, or you got in a car accident, or you got fired, like something negative happened in your life, right? You've got all these like shitty emotions related to that thing kind of over here, right? And catharsis can offer you a really intense way of getting through that without directly like, okay, you can't really do anything about the fact you got in a car accident necessarily. The steps are going to be what the steps are, but you can experience something really intense that gets your mind off of it, gives you emotional release, and allows you to like reset essentially and get kind of all those things worked through. And I'm not really a big proponent of like, you know, crying and screaming or whatever will like is like I don't know how to explain this, but like as far as I'm aware in like mainstream psychology, like catharsis or like screaming or crying or like punching like specifically is like you know, punching something, screaming at things doesn't really make you feel better. But I think when you're going through an intense BDSM experience and you're playing for like an hour and 2 hours and you're dealing with a lot physically, you're crying, you're screaming, you're carrying on, that is so intense for your brain to go through. And I think by the time you get through it and you're on that other side of it, that you're sort of like, okay, I'm all spent. All of my intense emotions have kind of worked through in my body, and now I'm ready to move on, right? So catharsis is not really subspace. I think that pursuing catharsis is like a perfectly normal reason for why a lot of people engage in certain BDSM activities, as long as you are not using it as a way to like escape accountability or escape every day working on whatever your shit is. I will quickly answer the Dom space question. One, you should tell your sub that it's not their job to like, they don't need to police or like ask you about like if you reach dom space. To me, this has a flavor of like when a man always asked after sex if a woman's come, and it's like, well, if you cared about me coming, you would know. Like, like there's like at some point it feels like pressure on you to do something specific because what you feel is important for their enjoyment, right? Like them having a good time isn't enough. You also have to perform this specific thing that they expect you to do. So maybe just tell them that like, hey, you know, you don't have to keep asking me about dom space. And also, this is really important. You don't have to go into dom space, subspace, whatever, in order to have a good scene. It is typically a pretty rare thing for most people. It's a very occasional thing. It's not most people's scenes. Some people get into subspace really easily and often, and that's them and their brain chemistry, but most people are not like that. But yeah, I just feel like maybe they need to not ask you every time. Because then at some point you're anticipating the question and then you're thinking about, am I getting into dom space? Am I doing it? Am I doing it? And then they're just like, when you think about it, it doesn't happen, right? Like just, they're kind of putting pressure on you and they may not mean to, but that pressure is not going to make it easier at the same time. I would also say just really quickly to research flow state. There's an article I want to say about this on the Shea and Stefanos website, Remedial Ropes. I think it's BDSM bullshit is the other title they use for that. And that can be a really good way to like find information, is that website. But flow state is typically what most people associate with dom space. And flow state actually has a relatively good number of research articles about it and you know, just even general kind of pop psychology articles about it if you want to read more about it. But I would say getting into dom space is much less common because you have to stay very mentally aware when you're doing a scene. If you're looking for safe words, nonverbal communication, if you have certain parameters of the scene that you're engaging in that require a high level of skill on your end, you know, from tying rope, other forms of restraint, you're doing some kind of really complicated wax play scene or something where you're dealing with fire, like you got a lot mentally going on and it can be really hard to kind of let go. So I wouldn't worry about dom space. Like dom space does not mean you had a good scene. Not having it doesn't mean you had a bad scene. Like it's the whole thing. So let's talk about guilt after a scene. So this is, I would say, if we're comparing it to sub drop, the most common sub drop symptoms that you'll hear people go through is they might feel pretty depressed for a couple of days or just have kind of a low mood in general. They might feel kind of crappy about themselves in terms of like, what kind of person am I? What does this mean about me? Just kind of, you know, cold and flu symptoms as well. You know, just general kind of, you know, lethargy, sluggishness, tiredness. You know, it's kind of lowered mood in general is pretty common, but it tends to be not like, it can have a guilt shame thing to it, but the guilt shame part of it tends to be like, well, why do I need this to get off? No one's gonna love me, blah blah blah, like that kind of a thing. But it mostly tends to be more of the physical symptoms, or you know, feeling worthless, feeling like a, you know, just those kinds of feelings. Whereas with dom drop or top drop, I would say the most common thing that people feel afterwards is guilt about having hurt someone. So sadly, you are in good company when it comes to how often people experience things like this. I had a psych professor who told us that they tested the idea of catharsis on wife beaters, and they had to stop the experiment when because it just reinforced aggressive behavior. I mean, have they replicated the study, I wonder, with non-wife beaters? Because that's an important question. Yeah, there's a lot of like groundbreaking, pivotal psychological experiments that were done with such a low standard of ethics that like you can't even really trust what the results are. But yeah, dealing with guilt and shame is a really, really common thing. And do I have? I think I have my DBT book. Okay, give me a second. All right, you're bringing out the workbook. Let's look for guilt and shame here. So we're just gonna go off of the assumption that you know that this shame or guilt is not proportional to the thing that you did. You know that everything you did was like fully consensual, and you want to be able to not deal with that feeling anymore. So we have fear, we have anger, we have disgust, envy, jealousy. Okay, we're shame. Perfect. We're on shame. Shame and guilt. So let's look at both of these. So for anyone who wants to Google this for later, this is the DBT workbook. This is page 239. Okay. And this is the shame section. So this is, you are dealing with shame. I know this is not really easy to see on my computer. You can Google most of these. So if you Google emotional regulation handout 11, shame, and then emotional regulation handout guilt, those will be in there. There's other DBT steps in here that you'd have to, if you don't know what fit the facts are or things, that's, you know, you can also Google that if you want to know how to do that. But what you do when you realize that, and guilt and shame go together in this, when it says, follow these suggestions when guilt and shame are not justified by the facts or are not effective. So you know that feeling guilt and shame is not effective for you. You know that the feelings are not justified because you know everything was consensual. You negotiated it first. The other person had a good time. You had a good time during the scene. There's no reason for, well, no reason. Your feelings are always valid. They're always valid. They're not always justified. That is the key thing. They're always valid. They're not always justified. But you know that shame and or guilt is not justified in this situation. So when you are feeling shame, you can do the opposite action. So you might feel like you need to withdraw, right? You might feel like you are not supposed to do that again. And what you do to combat these non-justified emotions is you do the opposite action. So for shame, the suggestions they give in this book would be to make public your personal characteristics or your personal characteristics or behavior with people who won't reject you. So this is great. This is one step. I think by participating in the BDSM community, you are doing an opposite action of shame because you are participating. You are saying, hey, here I am. I'm kinky and I'm okay with that. So you already got one. So that's great. Number 2 is to repeat the behavior that sets off shame over and over and over without hiding the behavior from those who won't reject you. So what this means is do more BDSM, do more scenes. This, for opposite action for this, because this book was not meant to deal with BDSM stuff, and I'm not a therapist, this is my own advice from having to work through these things myself, is what this means is when you feel ready again, I wouldn't go and do a scene tomorrow because like there are the physiological effects of drop, and doing multiple scenes back to back is not a good reason for those physiological effects. But maybe in a couple of days or in the next week or something, do scenes again. Do not do BDSM. Avoiding is the advice they give in this book. Avoiding. Don't stop doing BDSM because it makes you feel guilt or shame. Because when you can do it again, then you know, okay, I can keep doing this, and you're showing your body, you're showing your mind that the guilt and shame isn't actually helpful and it's not necessary, right? Because there's nothing really to be guilty and ashamed over. I would add on to that, hearing words of affirmation from your partner that you played with, getting verbal reminders from them, like by verbal I mean written text message, emails, voice notes, whatever, however you communicate with this individual person, and you should have a line of communication open with them, is like just check in with them and say, hey, I want to check in again. How is the scene for you? What did you like? I'm feeling this way right now. I'm kind of feeling a little bit of drop, and I would love to have some words of reassurance. Also, happy birthday. Congratulations. I kind of want to work through this shame one a little bit more with you guys. So the all the way opposite actions, this is if you're feeling really brave and you want to go all the way with your opposite actions with guilt and shame, would be no apologizing or trying to make up with the perceived transgression. What this means in practice for you, for doing a BDSM scene, don't apologize to your partner about doing BDSM with them. Because they had a fun time, right? You saying, sorry, we did BDSM together, I hope it didn't hurt you, it does not help. That's going to maybe even make them feel guilty. So don't apologize for doing something that both of you enjoyed and that you both got something out of, because there is no real transgression going on. There's nothing to apologize over. Only apologize when you genuinely mean it and when, if it's a situation, to actually apologize. Take in all the information from the situation. So that means talking to your partner, debriefing about the scene, doing the emotional work of talking about how the scene went. It doesn't have to be right now, doesn't have to be the same day, but when you feel ready, within a couple of days to a week, talk about how the scene went, take in all that information and feedback from your partner. And most importantly for right now, when you are feeling shame in your body, change your body posture. We know this about smiling. We know this about a couple of other things. But when you start doing the behavior physically, it changes the way your emotions feel in your body. It changes your mental set. So if you start smiling, you start to feel better. It's really weird. I don't know how to explain that because, again, I'm not a neurobiologist, but it is a thing that works. So changing your body posture. Look innocent and proud. Lift up your head, puff up your chest, maintain eye contact. Keep your voice tone steady and clear. So the voice one for me is always really hard. I have a really hard time controlling my tone of voice. And sometimes as well, like when you're tearing up, when you have a dry mouth, like there are certain things physiologically you might not have full control over when it comes to changing your tone of voice, but definitely things in terms of like eye contact, your physical body posture, you know, doing this and kind of hunching over and keeping your eyes downcast is very different from, you know, being uplifted, making eye contact, and feeling proud about yourself. And then there's a separate set of things you can do that I'm not going to go over because this is when shame is not justified by the facts or is not effective, but guilt is justified. So this is like a separate set of things. Like when your behavior violates your own moral values. Like your behavior might be justified, but it might not be in line with your values. I'm going to assume for the sake of doing BDSM that doing things that are consensual and mutually enjoyable are, are things that are justified. Now for the guilt section of this, which is the other page, it's the next page after this, is when you are going to be doing the opposite actions and the all the way opposite actions for guilt for when they are not effective and when they're not justified by the facts. So for guilt, the opposite actions, again, are making things, make public your personal characteristics or behavior of people who won't reject you. Repeat the behavior that sets off guilt over and over. So don't hide, don't withdraw, like keep going to events, keep engaging with people, keep talking. Again, all the way opposite actions, don't apologize, take in information, change your body posture. And then finally, in the very, very last category we have down here, follow these suggestions when your guilt is not justified by the facts or is not effective, but shame is justified. You will be rejected by people you care about if found out. And that might be relevant for BDSM. So I'm going to go ahead and read these because, you know, you may have your group of people, you know, here among us that you can be open about, but maybe the shame is, maybe it's not in line with your values, maybe other things, I don't know. But the opposite actions for guilt, you know, hide your behavior you want to stay in the group, use interpersonal skills, work to change the person's or group's values, join a new group, repeat the behavior sets off guilt over and over again in the new group. But the things I want to highlight here is the all the way opposite action for guilt. Validate yourself, bitch. Just look at this one. Number 6. Do this. Validate yourself. Okay? Listen to that one. If you can't do anything else, if anything else in this seems too confusing and you're like, I don't know if I can be, you know, changing my body posture is hard, or, you know, taking in all the information seems too much right now because I'm still dealing with drop, or I already reflexively apologize, so I can't let that cat out of, you know, I can't put the cat back into the bag. Validate yourself. Remind yourself that you are a good person. You are worthy. You acted within your values. You acted within consent. Everyone involved had a good time. What you did was acceptable. It was normal because BDSM fantasies are something like 95% of humanity has. Very few people act on BDSM. A lot of people have BDSM adjacent fantasies. A lot of people have those fantasies. So you're normal. You're understandable. You're good. You're fine. You're a good person. So I thought you said shave, not shame. No, I meant shame. So that is my advice, kind of off the top of my head, of like concrete ways that you can deal with guilt and shame. And I think sort of outside of doing these kind of more immediate behaviors as outlined in this book, I would, and I love this, even if you're not doing like DBT with like a therapist or something, like the DBT workbook. There's one in here. I haven't actually read this one yet, so I can't fully vouch for it, but I did recently get this one. If you are dealing with emotional dysregulation, after a scene, if you're dealing with emotional dysregulation in your life because you're like me and you cry all the time, this is a tool book that you can possibly use. So, guilt and shame are really, really difficult. I think this is a scenario where the more you do it and the more you can reassure your body and your brain that you're fine, that everything involved was fine, it'll be okay. You do have to kind of remember that for the first like couple of days after a scene, you could just be experiencing drop. That is a physiological thing that is difficult to avoid, but you can do things to mitigate it in the future, right? Like plan for emotional resilience after a scene is done, okay? That might mean that you as the top or the dom need more aftercare, right? That could be words of affirmation, that could be getting a snack, going out for a smoke, it could be having a tall glass of water, taking a nap, having a hot bath. It could be whatever it is, right? It could be curling up and watching a Disney movie. I don't care what it is. Find things that bring you joy, that help you relax. There is also in this book a list of like 200 nice things you can do on a daily basis to help build up emotional resilience. So try to find things and ways in your day, both before the scene and definitely afterwards, to help you have like a more robust emotional baseline. You're basically building up the crust. You need to build up the crust of your positive emotions. Okay? You got to build up some layers of emotional crust. And then when you do that, after you have been able to build up that emotional crust, that means when you go through a scene and something ping goes off of the crust, it's not taking everything away and hitting you. It's pinging off of that crust. I might take out a little bit from it. I don't know why I chose crust in this scenario, but that's what we're going with. I'm thinking of like the crust of the earth. You don't want it to get into your molten core of your heart. You want to be able to just go off the surface. And because you've built up that emotional resilience, it's not going to get down to you. But the way that you do that is having positive emotional experiences and relaxation right after the scene with the person you're playing with. You build up general positive feelings towards BDSM. You reduce your association with guilt and shame in BDSM, right? That reminding yourself that you were acting within your values. You know that you were doing this in a way that's consensual. You know everything was enjoyed. Or if it wasn't, even if the scene went bad, right? Like even if you messed up, if you made a mistake, that those things are human, and as long as they're forgivable and like it wasn't a massive consent violation, there are things you can work through and you tried your best, right? So that's really, really important. Honestly, I am pretty sure like 95% of this chat is neurodivergent. So, you know, you're in good company. Yes, you're in very good company here with neurodivergentness. I don't know if I count as neurodivergent because I'm not autistic and I don't have ADHD. I guess I have been accused of being autistic before, technically, but I'm not. I've been evaluated. Like, I've seen way too many mental health professionals over the course of my life for that. Like, I just don't have any of the markers. I'm very emotional. That's me. Just a very emotional person. I like cheese stuffed emotional crust. Yeah, exactly. Have your cheese stuffed emotional crust. And just, you know, I think really having that bonding after the scene with your partner in terms of like emotional or physical connection. Like that could be physically non-sexual. That could be cuddling, foot rubs, back scratches, taking a bath together, showering together. If you are like romantically or sexually attached, that can be a really good way of building things back up again. Anyways, that's my advice on that. I hope that helped. If you guys have any more emotional questions, I'm happy to answer what I can, but I'm not an expert. I just want to promote the resources that I think are good. Yeah, no, I honestly don't know if you surveyed the BDSM community how many of us would be neurodivergent, but I'm pretty sure it's a majority. I'm pretty sure it's a majority. I mean, I am a nerd. That's been confirmed my whole life. I don't think I've ever not been a nerd. It's just part of how I am. But I am sorry you are going through a rough time. And I hope my answer helped a little bit. All right, I'm going to try and get to some questions here. Love all the questions. By the way, if you guys are new here, would love it if you're lurking. If you're just watching, say hello in the chat. Give it a thumbs up. Let me know how you're feeling. Let me know how you're doing. Oh, we're talking about trees. I prefer fake trees. I've always had one. Most of my family has really bad asthma, so we couldn't do a real one. Facts. That's true. Seems like a lot of work. I'd also worry about the dogs, like, destroying a real tree. Ooh, you went to a kink fleet, ended up being a leave one, take one thing. Oh, it was like a swap meet. Oh, that's cool. With vendors and classes. It was a good time. I also went to my first play party. I mean, look at Audrey doing all the fun stuff. That's so exciting. Congrats. I love that. I would love to go to a BDSM swap meet. I would have such a fun time. I had a real tree growing up. Loved it. My mom switched to fake trees because they are easier. I miss the pine smell. That is true. The smell is a big component. I always like candles, though. So I like that I don't have to compete with pine smell for candles. Okay, answer the dollification thing already. Please do not spam the chat or it will annoy me. Reminds me of that terrifying Criminal Minds episode where she turns people into dolls. I will say Joss Whedon has a thing for dolls. He's kind of a dollification guy. Not a good guy per se, but he does really love dolls. Lurkers of the world unite. Yes, please. I'm a recent subscriber and have been watching a lot of your videos. Thank you. Yeah. So glad you guys are here. I really appreciate it. Spending some time on your precious Friday night. Friday night, you could be going to a party. You could be hanging up Christmas stockings. I don't know, making banana bread. You're here with me. Good stuff. Good stuff. People who watch shorter videos don't join live streams. True. It's like, what is more opposite of a TikTok? It's definitely an 8-hour live stream. This is not going to be 8 hours. I do like 2.5 at the most. Like 3 hours is like, that's like, I gotta rest after that. I'm just not, I'm like, if I was more extroverted, I think I could stream for longer, but after a while, just like, it's only me talking? Exhausting. Can't do, no. I need a sound guy. I need a sound guy to clip me and then just like repeat common things that I say so I can actually talk less. That would be perfect. How do you know if more than one kink may apply to you? I mean, the simple instinctual answer that popped into my head is, well, for most people, more than one kink applies. Very few people, unless you are a true blue fetishist, very few people will only have one kink in BDSM because there are hundreds of things that you could do. Oh, thank you so much, Brandon. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge. Oh, thank you. Well, I'm so glad you're here, and thank you so much for the super chat. But yeah, are you talking about like two related kinks? Like, how do I know if I'm both a kitten player and a puppy player? Or like, is it like, how do I know if I both like masochism and service submission? Because the answer is most people have more than one kink. So that's just the easiest way to think about it is yes. It's a yes and. BDSM is for the most part a yes and, not an either or. Again, unless you are a fetishist and the only reason you do BDSM is to engage in your fetishes, in which case, okay, then the only thing you might like could be feet. Then that might be you. But for most people, that's not the case. How do I feel about eggnog? Well, I'm vegan, and I can't really drink dairy or eggs. So I did not grow up drinking eggnog. I have a sibling that really enjoys eggnog for some reason. I have never really gotten into it. I have tried eggnog before. That's like vegan eggnog that was like pretty decent. But I don't generally like eggnog because it's like too heavy. It's like too fatty. And I'm very sensitive to like fatty food. I don't really like things that are like heavy and like greasy and fatty. And don't get me wrong, I love sugar. I have way too much sugar for my own good. I have no problem with carbs whatsoever. Like, but fatty food, like it's too rich and I can't have very much of it. So I don't really drink a lot of eggnog. I don't think I have like, I don't hate it. I just think it's not for me. Like I can have a little bit of it, but like even if I got like a little, I guess they normally make it in pretty small cartons. But even if I got like a small carton of it, I don't know if it would last. I don't know. I think it probably would go bad before I had it all, honestly. Agreed, most people have more than one kink. I mean, most of them. I think if you surveyed people, I wonder if you surveyed people what the average number of kinks would be. My guess is probably between like 5 and 15. But it depends on how you count what a discrete kink is. Like, are whipping and flogging separate kinks? Or is it all just like impact play? It would depend on how you counted it. Okay, that's the thing though. I've never had eggnog with actual liquor in it. Is that what I'm doing wrong? Maybe that's it. Maybe if I drank it with liquor, I'd like it better. I don't really drink though. I'm not a big drinker. I do sometimes, but like, I did on stream once. That was fun. We had a good time. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll drink eggnog on stream for like Christmas Eve. Cause I'm going out of town earlier this year for like most of my Christmas stuff. So what day of okay. So Christmas is the 24th. So I'm going to say tentatively that possibly on December 23rd, I will drink alcoholic eggnog on stream. I'm not going to make any promises, but there could be a possibility of that happening. All right, somebody pinged me on Field. I got to open this. Because last time somebody pinged me, it was a 58-year-old man that didn't live in my city. So I was like, how did you find me? Who are you? I'm not going to roast this person on stream, whoever he is, but I'm like, who's pinging me? Because I'm not active on Field. And so when somebody pings me, I'm like, oh, it's a 51-year-old man from far away. Wow, there's like nothing on this guy's profile. This is awesome. Oh my God. Can 50-year-old men, like, my maximum age range on my dating apps for matching with people is like 38 or 39. Like, I'm pretty open. Like, I'm okay with having like a fairly sizable age gap. Like a 10-year age gap is not anything to sneeze at. But like, I do not want somebody who's in their 50s. I'm sorry. No hate. I just like different life stages, you know? Especially because, okay, I'm not going to share anything else about his profile, but this should tell you everything you need to know about why he pinged me. And it's because he didn't read my profile. And his interests are sex, ocean swimming, bonfires, beach walks, hiking, and live music. Field, F-E-E-L-D, is a polyamorous and open relationship focused dating app. Yeah, just the first 3 things were sex. I've actually not seen that before. And I do not care about your penis. I'm sorry. I don't care about people's genitals. I don't know how to like make people realize this, but I just don't care about the genitals. If I could have nothing to do with my life with genitals, I'd probably be happier. TBH. Don't apologize for like the guilt thing from earlier. I know, it's that goddamn Catholicism. It strikes again. the Catholicism drives me to apologize. Yeah. Anyways, let's talk not about people who ping me at 7 p.m. on Field, but let's talk about questions. I got really hit hard by the demonetization demons this month. I don't know what the fuck I've done wrong this month with my content, but for some reason YouTube's like, oh, you want to make money. You want to make money doing YouTube? You want to have your videos during the best month of the year for advertisements be monetized? Ridiculous. Demonetized. Like all of my videos. I think I have one video out of the last 10 videos I've posted that are monetized. Like it's crazy. I think the last one that got monetized was the interview I did with Daddy on Lee. Roast boat owning divorced car dad. I mean, he definitely was not a car dad, but he seemed like a boat owner. So, I guess we're just doing, I don't know if he's divorced, but the profile did note that he was an empty nester. And I don't think he was wearing a wedding ring, so I don't know what that means. Oh gods, I'll be in the 50s soon. Have a good thought for me. I mean, no, I'd be fine. Like, let me categorize this. I love hanging out with older people in the BDSM community. People in their 40s, 50s, 60s. I love hanging out and talking to them as like peers and finding out like what the BDSM community was like in the 90s and the 80s. Like I love that. However, 50-year-old divorced dads that are going through a midlife crisis that want to get, frankly, they're looking for young pussy. They want to see how, like, they want to get like a kinky girl in their 20s to fuck to get through their divorce mentally. I don't want to deal with that. I'm not here to fix your whatever. I don't care about your dick. Again, I do not care about the penis. Don't care. Not irrelevant to me as a body part. Completely irrelevant. Thank you, Twixie. That does. $2 is basically how much my videos make anyway. So like $2 definitely makes up for the views. You know, you were great. You're great. I love it. YouTube's nuts, honestly. Yes, please do not gender somebody in the chat if you don't know pronouns or titles. Good point. I agree. Do not assume gender. And I don't mean in a, did you just assume my gender like, I don't know, reactionary 2016 YouTube bullshit way? I mean, genuinely don't. Oh no. Googled, oh no, wait. You Googled Danorama? First picture is a man that looks like a 700-year-old vampire to a woman looking 16. Wait, okay. Since you Googled that, I now have to verify for you if that's actually Danorama or not. By the way, he's like a very public figure, so I don't feel like me doing this is... Oh, he was on a show called Kink University. I forgot about that. Oh, he's been in a couple of things, actually. Okay, he's been in like a fuck ton of things. Okay, he's a public figure. I'm allowed to make... Yep. No, yep, that's him. Yep. See what I was, yep. Oh my god, she looks like a child. In the middle picture when they're like hiking together. Okay, so if you Google Danorama, I don't know what'll pop up in the same order, but the second picture is like, I think it's from his Twitter. And I don't care about this man at all. So I don't care if I'm burning bridges with this individual. But like in the middle picture, it's like him and a gal and they're like hiking together or something. She looks so young. And I know this man's old. And like age gaps are fine, but like when you don't date anyone your own age and you only ever date 20-year-olds and whenever you do scenes, it's like you and 3 women that are barely the legal age to be doing BDSM. I get a little side eye. Give a little side eye. You know, I just... What's up with that? You know, what is up with that? Can verify that is the correct Danorama. I will say, though, he has good fashion sometimes. As far as his outfits, wears a lot of latex. Definitely puts on a show as far as the outfits go. Puts in the effort. Definitely puts in the effort. Loves corsets as well. I think he even wears corsets too, which is like, all right, normalizing corsets for diverse genders. We love it. But outside of that, a little suspicious. That and his presentations to me are not generally worth the money. But, you know, that's my opinion of what my expectations from an educator are. Oh, thank you. The story in your Patreon about the scene at Leather Rain was really moving. Thank you. I waited a while to post that because I filmed that like the day or two after I got back from Leather Rain. And it was I had 2 hours of footage to edit, which is just like, it was a long time. Anyways, on my Patreon, $10 plus tier, I did a video where I talked about my experience at Leather Rain. And it was mostly like advice for going to conventions and like packing and scenes and what to wear and how to meet people. It was mostly that kind of a thing. But at the very end, the last, like, I want to say like 20 minutes or so of it, I told this story of doing a whip scene after I had had some negative experiences previously in my kink life involving whips. I don't want to go into details about it here, but I had negative experiences previously in my kink life involving whips. I met someone at Leather Rain who was a very experienced female dominant sadist top person that loves doing whips, loves doing pickup play, and I asked to do kind of a little taster with her, and it was a really, really wonderful experience, and she was just a genuinely very nice person, and also mean, like in a sadist way, but like in the way that we want them to be, you know, not definitely very, very good at checking in. And this is what it like, going back to people in their 50s and 60s, this is what I like about older people in the kink scene, is we get this stereotype of like old people are set in their ways and they don't like, they're like, consent, what's that, what are safe words, like real BDSM people don't need safe words. And like I saw a lot of people that were maybe in their 60s, possibly in their 70s, doing BDSM at this particular convention. And a lot of them, I can't say all of them because I didn't watch everybody's scenes, but a lot of them were very communicative. They checked in a lot. They were really mindful of their partners. They were very emotionally connected. And I think this is a boundary thing that a lot of younger dominants, especially male dominants, let's be honest, have a problem with, is they might learn how to perform the actions of a scene, but they really struggle with the emotional component of it. They really struggle with knowing how to emotionally connect to a partner during a scene, you know, kind of how to make that check-in process, feeling somebody's emotion, sharing that space energetically with another person takes a lot more time to know how to navigate. And I think a lot of people struggle with like sitting in that kind of like sensual, more energetic exchange, if that makes sense. Hope it does. Anyways, I don't know how I got off on that. Oops, I forgot I paused the video earlier. That was in response to going through the workbook part of the video. Well, you know, you can Google most of these worksheets, so if you liked what I showed on screen, you don't have to try and screen capture what I did during the stream. You can just Google them. Most of them are available for free. And the book's like $30 on Amazon. And it's huge. Like, for people who didn't see it, this is the workbook. It's huge. I mostly read this, and I have this for the emotional regulation section and distress tolerance skills. Those are also really good. But there's a lot in here that's not just emotional regulation. I would say is like emotional regulation and distress tolerance is like half the book, but a lot of it is also like advice on apologies, you know, clarifying your priorities, figuring out what your values are. A lot of it is identifying emotions as well, if you have struggle identifying emotions, dealing with self-validation, identifying other people, thinking in a dialectic way, thinking of, you know, multiple different reasons for other people's behaviors and decision making, you know, walking in a middle path. You know, it's a lot of stuff. There's even advice for like how to end relationships, you know, how to, you know, there's a lot of stuff in here that's really helpful for a lot of people, but especially the, you know, emotional regulation part of it is really helpful. You know, how to use your wise mind. What else is in here? A lot of mindfulness stuff as well. You know, how to be non-judgmental. Because a lot of this is based it's primarily developed for people who have borderline personality disorder. So a lot of the first half of the book is dealing with like black and white thinking, and you know, how to be more compassionate, how to be more empathetic, how to look at things from multiple different points of views. And this is really the gold standard for treatment and you know, skills development for people with a borderline personality disorder. But it's helpful for a lot of people. If you have anxiety, if you have self-esteem problems, a lot of the emotional regulation and distress tolerance is really good if you're dealing with some emotional shit, honestly. DBT is honestly like revolutionary as far as I'm concerned. It's like DBT, for my money, is the most important recent development in like practicing psychology, like in therapy, that has come out. Like it's so important. CBT, who needs it? New bitches in town. Like CBT is helpful in some respects, right? Because it's like there's emotions, thoughts, and actions, right? And different things, whether that be IFS, DBT, CBT, other forms of talk therapy, other whatever approaches you might be using, can act on different kind of portions of that segment. But I really feel like DBT is like very helpful, and is like, it's literally somebody's life work. But this is somebody's magnum fucking opus as a therapist, is to create this system and create this book for helping people. And it's really, really good. But that's me. So the book, I realized I didn't show the cover. It is DBT skills training, handouts, and worksheets. I will tell you right now, usually how this is used is in essentially like a group therapy setting. Usually the way that you would do something like this is you get homework, you work through this, you work in a group setting through this in a group therapy setting. These are handouts that are meant to kind of be an adjunct to like being part of like a total therapy experience. But if you like think this would be helpful for you, you can't afford a therapist, you can't afford group therapy. If you are somebody that is an intelligent human being that wants to do good things for their life, I would still recommend getting this, and just realize that like some of the stuff might be a little bit difficult to get through if you don't have like mental health support outside of this workbook. But I think especially like the distress tolerance skills, and you can even get online besides this book, you can get like flashcards for stuff. Like if you want help with like distress tolerance, right? Like if you are dealing with like PTSD triggers, if you're dealing with anxiety attacks or panic attacks, certainly some of the distress tolerance skills in here can be a very good thing to have just in your back pocket for helping with that. Or like emotional regulation if you're somebody who's like me and you're very prone to extreme emotions, you have bipolar. Anyways, not talking about my mental health situation too much. But if you're somebody that deals with emotion dysregulation issues, which could include depression, bipolar, anxiety disorders, those can also be helpful. And definitely if you want kind of a smaller book dealing with the regulating emotion, this is the book that was recommended to me. This is specifically dealing with the opposite action. So this is what we talked about earlier with dealing with shame and guilt, right? Where the opposite action of shame and guilt is to be proud of yourself, right? Is to continue to do the thing that provokes the guilt and shame. As long as the emotion is justified, it fits the facts, and it doesn't violate your values. There's a whole guide in here about what that means. It can be difficult to work out exactly when things are justified or not, especially if you're dealing with like, well, I feel like it's okay, but other people around me feel like it's not. Like, it can be hard, but this is a really good thing to have. Anyways, I found DBT far more helpful than CBT, but by far the best therapy for me was STARE, mainly because my crap is trauma-based. Yeah, there's a lot of like EMDR, STARE. I'm forgetting one of the other like PTSD like focused therapy modalities are. I'm not an expert in this, but like I have a lot of experience finding therapists for other people. Like I feel like most of my relationships I'm like a therapy finder consultant. But yeah, there's a lot of, I really like DBT. I'm also a big fan of IFS, which is I just forgot what the acronym is. Internal Family Systems. Which is a little bit woo for some people, but I find it very helpful personally because I'm a very when I was little, I was very artsy. I was very creative. I was very in my own head. I have a very, very robust imagination. And so I am easily able to like visually create things in my own head. And having something like IFS as a way to kind of personify and interact with my emotions and intense feelings is really helpful. And I found that to be, it's kind of like a weird thing, but there's also resources for that online. There's a lot of really good YouTube videos that talk about internal family systems and how to do that. If you are like a more creative, artistic person, if you find that you are able to really strongly visualize and like connect with your emotions, that can be a good thing. If you are dealing with trauma, I do not recommend doing that without a therapist, just for the record. Anything I've said, I recommend strongly if you have the financial ability, which I know not everyone does because America sucks. Highly recommend doing it with a therapist because especially dealing with things like IFS or like opposite action, distress tolerance behaviors, that can all be emotionally risky to practice alone if you don't have an outside support network. But that's me. I recommend everyone get therapy. Honestly, if you're like, I don't have any problems, I'm mentally healthy. Fucking all of you in this chat are neurodivergent, okay? Like, we are all neurodivergent here. We could all benefit from developing more skills to cope with life. I think personally. IFS is great. Okay, Sarah, you are literally the first person I've ever talked to that knows what IFS is, and I'm so happy. I feel like a crazy person trying to discuss what IFS is, which is like, yeah, you just go into your brain and you enter into yourself, and then you visualize these things, and then you have this like persona of yourself from when you're 5 years old, and you talk to it, and you tell it to be like, it's just like, it sounds nuts. Yeah. EMDR doesn't work for me. I tried it with my therapist the last 2 weeks. It wasn't good. Yeah, I mean, no therapy practice is going to work for everyone, right? That's why there's so many different modalities, so many different therapists. I know the clinical research behind EMDR is not really substantiated, which somebody else just pointed out in the chat. I have never done EMDR, so I can't validate whether or not it's successful on an individual level, but a lot of therapists offer EMDR, so, you know, you're going to run into it a lot. EMDR has helped me a lot. See, yeah, exactly. Like, it's like, for me, it's really like you got to have a broad set of approaches to deal with the fact that all of our brains are very different and respond to different things. Like, there are a lot of people who cannot do IFS. Like, they either can't visualize well enough, it's way too emotionally intense for them, like it would take them a long time to like center in them, like in their self, before engaging in like actual IFS practice. And some people, DBT is like too complicated, it's too many rules, too many steps, it's like too much. Some people get a lot out of CBT, some people don't. Like, it's all different stuff. Personally, I have found IFS to be beneficial for myself just because, again, I'm a very visual person. I have a very robust imagination. And I've always found that after I've done a session with IFS, like when I do it with myself, and I feel better afterwards. Like, I've been like, all right, sorry, I gotta have a conference call with my feelings, bye. And then I just like go and hide under a blanket and then do a little IFS session, and then I feel better afterwards. What's my opinion on hypnosis? I do not have strong feelings about hypnosis. I did an interview on my channel a while ago talking about hypnosis, but I have never, I've done self-hypnosis. I've listened to like self-hypnosis videos before, but I haven't ever gone super deep in them because my brain pulls me out. Like, my brain was like, well, we don't feel safe, bye. Like, we just pull the plug on hypnosis. So I felt myself getting into like a hypnotic trance before, but I have never gone like fully in a hypnotic trance. My understanding is like hypnosis is like not widely accepted as being real. But I don't know, our fucking brains are weird, man. Like, brains are complicated. Why not? Like, we already, like, if we talk to people who do hypnosis, they talk about how like a lot of us enter trance states like on a daily basis. Like, if you have a long commute to work, if you know you're waking up in the morning, you go through your morning routine, like a lot of times you end up going into a trance when you do like habitual routines you don't fully have to pay attention to anymore. So like, I've never done hypnosis. I think hypnosis as a kink is perfectly fine. I think people that generally are into hypnosis and are part of like the hypno-kink community value consent and value safe practices as much as anybody else does. So I don't really have any problem with it. Is there any actual clinical evidence of hypnosis? I don't know. I'm not a hypnotherapist, so I can't say. And I am not a therapist in general, so I can't say. But I'm speaking mostly from like a hypno-kink perspective. And I think that like there's all kinds of people who do like hypno kink stuff, and I do find sometimes hypno kink people can be a little bit grating because they'll be like, yeah, I hypnotized her into thinking that she was nailed to a cross and blah blah blah, and sometimes it gets a little excessive, like, all right, you're just showing off. But you know, turns out doing hypnosis stuff is way easier than doing it for real. Who would have guessed? But you know, who am I to judge? People's brains are weird. Sometimes people are suggestible, sometimes they're not. I don't really think we know. That's how I feel about it too. I want to try it, but my brain won't let me. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that is. I think if your brain doesn't feel safe, it's probably better to not do it. And that goes for anything in life. Like, if your brain's telling you no and is, hey, this doesn't feel safe to me, unless you have a really good support network around you and you know how to make it safe for sure, I wouldn't really play around with that stuff unless you got some assurances there. But my thing is like, the placebo effect is still in effect, right? Even if all it really is people, you know, hypnosis makes them feel safe, receiving certain information, and it feels like it gives them permission to do certain things that they don't think they can do on their own, and it empowers them to do something they otherwise thought was impossible, right? Like quitting smoking or weight loss or whatever the fuck. And it actually ends up happening or working in some way, as long as they weren't charged an arm and a leg for it and it wasn't like exploitative in that way, it would help somebody do something positive for their life, even if it was just a placebo effect. Like, okay, it helped. It was an effect. It was technically an effect. But I don't really know a lot about hypnosis. I do have an interview about it, again, if you want to see the video I did on hypnosis. I did an interview, how long ago was that? It was probably a couple of years. It was like maybe like 3 years. It was a while ago. But it's on my channel in my interview playlist if you want to watch it. All right, moving on from hypnosis. Yeah, like any place online, FetLife needs due diligence, and there are bad actors, but if you use it to find events in your area, it's pretty great. Yeah, exactly. I have a video that I'm probably going to put out on Sunday that is a new and improved guide to using FetLife. So if you want to know more about FetLife, I have something for you coming very soon. Okay, YouTube is being very slow with letting me scroll through messages here. My experience is that I have to be completely relaxed in order to trance. Any tension at all and I'm on high alert, but when I'm able to go under, it definitely works. Good stuff, you know? I joined a little group near my city back in August, and it's been amazing. I made friends, and I'm getting out there and doing a lot with them. That's so awesome! Congrats, Andrew. I hope that's going well. I know we've gotten a couple super chats from you relating to your adventures in the kink scene. I feel my mind let go, my body and mind just feel. It can be very intense with my partner when we're primal with each other. Oh, yeah. That's when we were talking about Subspace stuff. Okay. My partner is asexual. She has expressed interest in having sex with me, but every time we try, she gets very uncomfortable, and I can't go through with it because she's getting annoyed. What, DK? What can I do? I love that the reaction is annoyance. I was not expecting to read that at the end. That's why I kind of laughed a little bit. I was like, what? So, okay. Partner's asexual. She wants to try having sex, but when you try, she gets uncomfortable, and I can't agree with it because she's getting annoyed. What to do? I feel like step number 1 is figuring out what's annoying to her, right? Because as an asexual person, I'm very particular about when I feel like I'm okay having sex, right? It has to be like a certain time of the day. It has to be before I've eaten a heavy meal. Like if I have food, we're not having sex afterward. I'm sorry. No sex is going to happen after food. No, dinner and sex? Absolutely not. No. So for me, like I'd like probably it could be the lighting as well. Maybe she prefers the room to be dark, maybe nighttime before bed. Maybe she wants it to be during the daytime and it's too dark and the darkness annoys her. I don't know. I'm not her. But my assumption is if she's an ace individual who, like me, has some level of sexual repulsion or aversion, probably things that make it feel less like sex and less genital focused would be better, right? So maybe it means not getting totally naked. Maybe it means having the lights off. Maybe it means having something else going on, like a movie or a TV show or music going on in the background. That can be something to kind of focus on instead of like the genital stuff. Oh, I see. So it's not she's getting annoyed. Okay, I think I misread that. I'm just realizing now. So she's getting annoyed not about the sex, but annoyed because it hasn't happened yet. And because she gets uncomfortable. So, okay, basically everything I just said still applies. But just the problem is not the annoyance, but the discomfort. It is possible to have a one-on-one conversation with you. You're honestly just someone I want to sit and deep dive with. Yes, Andrew, I do. So on my second Patreon, I'm so glad you brought this up because I meant to bring this up during the stream tonight as well. I have a second Patreon account. It's Evie Lupine 2. I'll post a link to it in the chat for y'all. And I think I currently have one more spot available for this month for a 30-minute direct chat. And I also have a few spots open for a 1 hour long chat. So if you want to come and chat with me, I do all the different platforms. I got the Google, the Zoom, the Skype, whatever else. Discord too. You can chat with me, video call, voice call, whatever your preference is. Even sometimes I've done things over email with people or like chat when they feel like too nervous to actually talk to me directly. That's also totally fine. It's still, you get 30 minutes of my undivided attention regardless of what it is. And that is a really good way of talking to me. It's on my second Patreon. $30 a month for half an hour long chat, $55 for a full hour. And again, that can be just shooting the breeze. It could be troubleshooting issues. I talk to couples. I talk to individual people. Like, it's all across the board. It's whatever you want it to be. The one thing it's not is flirting. This is not a take me on a date for a half an hour service. It is whatever you want to talk about. Advice. I have people that come in with like a notebook and like a bullet point list. I have people that just go, I don't know, I wanted to show you my cat. And then we just talk about their cat for 30 minutes. Like, it's whatever. But I'm super happy to talk to people. And again, I have one spot open remaining for 30 minutes. And I have a 1 more hour spot remaining. I should probably double check that because I feel like Patreon is weird because it does not kick people off of limited tiers when their pledge is declined. So like if somebody's still signed up but they don't delete their pledge and like their payment doesn't work anymore, their card expires or something, it'll leave them on the tier. So I might actually have 1 or 2 more spots open actually now that I think about it, but I need to check to see if like somebody's on there whose payment's technically in decline or not. But anyways, that is that. What the fuck was I talking about? Oh, asexual and sex. So okay, what is making her uncomfortable, right? Oh, thank you, Nathan. Here's a good holiday season for everyone. Here we go.
Here's a good holiday season for everyone. This can be a hard time for so take care of yourself and others. You matter.
Oh, that's so sweet. Okay, that deserves a bandit moment. Where's my dog? Did she escape? She was in the room with me earlier. Did she leave? She literally disappeared before I started streaming. She must have left when I went to go do my makeup. Oh, I gotta go find my dog now. Little dog. She might be outside. Bandita. 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 Alright, I'm going to try and find her later because I could not find her. She's probably outside. I can actually look and see if I can see her on my outdoor camera. But, sorry, no bandit moment. Maybe a bandit moment in a minute, but not right now. I want to see if I can lure her upstairs. I left the door open a crack, so I'm kind of hoping she'll bust down the door. But she did not hear me calling for her. So, uncomfortableness and sex. So I think it's like, okay, what's making her uncomfortable? Is it the temperature in the room, right? Is it too cold? Is it too hot? Is it the lighting? Is it the smells? Is it there's so many things that can cause somebody to be uncomfortable about sex, especially as an ace person. I find that for me, and this is only me, I feel the most comfortable when it's like a dark room. It's not like too noisy. It's not like, how am I trying to describe this? Like, it's like maybe there's music in the background, but it's not like too loud and distracting. Clothes probably is like partway still on. I don't really love nudity and having to look at somebody else's genitals, so I definitely prefer more like soft lighting. Okay, I think you hear a dog. There might be a dog coming. And then what else is sort of, there she is. There's my little girl. Hi, honey. There you go. Bust down the door. There you go. There you go. Hi. Hi, you're jinkling. We're gonna take off the jinkles. Hi, little dog. Hi. Hi, you. Hi. Come say hello to everyone. Come say hello. Hi. There you are. There you are, sweet angel. Hi. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Yeah, there you go. Good girl. Good girl. All right. I gotta show you to everyone. I gotta show you off. There we go. Are you gonna smile? Are you gonna smile for everyone? There you go. Good girl. Oh, you smell me? You smell my face? You smell my little face, huh? There we go. Good girl. Good girl. Yeah, were you having fun outside? Were you having fun? You came in the house. You hear me looking for you, honey? I came back from the store early today because I was running errands, and there's a gate outside, and I could just see her nose under the gate sticking out from underneath it, and then she ran inside, and she ran to greet me at the front door. It was so cute. It's like always having a toddler who's happy to see you. That's basically what having a dog is like. It's fantastic. Are you a good girl? Are you a good girl? Yeah, you're a good girl. Here we go. Look at that. Look how happy. I'm a happy girl. Yes. All right, this has been your bandita moment. All right, levántate. There you go. Oh, you're getting a puppy. That's exciting. Yes, the stream is complete now. All right, logging off. No, we got 10 more minutes. This moment was brought to you by Floof. Lots of Floof. Oh, after she goes to the groomer's next, I gotta remember to put on her bandana. She has Christmas bandanas. I forgot about that. Cute stuff. So anyways, hopefully I sort of answered the question about like sex and discomfort. I mean, it's hard because like the advice you would give for somebody who's not asexual doesn't always work with ace people. Because like the standard advice for like somebody who's not really comfortable with sex yet is like, oh, you gotta make sure you warm them up first, and you gotta do this and that, and you use toys and watch porn together and yada yada. And that doesn't really work in my experience. My personal, very individual experience as being an ace person is I do not want to watch pornography. I do not want somebody to spend an overlong amount of time touching me first before the act starts. I would just get it over with most of the time. So drawing it out makes it worse. So I think it's really great that you're trying to keep her consent and like her comfort level in mind. And I think maybe what it would just take is like a lot of verbal reassurances of like, are you okay doing this? Are you okay doing this? Are you ready for me to try this now? And then like, definitely make sure you're getting a for sure yes. I'm definitely not saying to coerce anyone, but also like sometimes with an ace person who wants to try sex, there might be just that level of initial discomfort or uncomfortableness. And then when you get into the moment, that kind of like goes away. But I don't know. It's just hard. Because like, like the thing is, number one, troubleshoot what makes the thing uncomfortable. Try to reduce that discomfort. It might just take a while before you find whatever that is. And then when you find it, take advantage of the moment and make it happen then. All right, let's see if I can find another question here. Oh. Okay, the kink catharsis question I answered already. BDSM and science, they're usually at Kinky College in Chicago. Oh yeah, I've heard of that before. I've not done anything involving that. What are your thoughts on marijuana and BDSM? So as long as it's legal where you live, I consider it more or less to be the same as doing BDSM under the influence of any other substance. I do not recommend doing it with somebody you don't know well. I don't recommend doing it with a stranger. I don't recommend doing it in a non-negotiated state and doing it as like an improvised, like, hey, why don't we just do this kind of a thing. I think there is a way to play with intoxicating substances in a consent-minded way. It is definitely a more risk-aware consensual kink activity where there is an inherent level of risk that cannot be mitigated away in what you are doing, because somebody's ability to revoke consent is obviously made more difficult by the introduction of an intoxicating substance. What I would recommend doing is it being with a partner you trust, talking extensively about it beforehand, everything that's okay, everything that's not okay, definitely keeping things limited in scope to things that you have done outside of that interaction that you know you both enjoy, right? Like doing a scene intoxicated is not the time to introduce a brand new kink. I recommend doing things you've already done. Like if you do spanking with this person a lot and you just want to try it when you're drunk, that's way different than like spanking with somebody that you've never done spanking with before and you barely know them. Like, so make sure you have that trust. You're in a safe space that you are familiar with. Make sure you have a plan. Okay, what happens if this happens? You know, are you comfortable with maybe not being able to revoke your consent? Still having a safe word. Maybe using plain English communication. No means no, stop means stop. Instead of just relying on a safe word. And just realize there is going to be a level of risk associated with that. But I don't think that's like inherently always bad. I don't recommend playing at venues where people drink or playing while drunk or anything like that just because it leads to more issues with consent, especially with strangers and people you don't know well. But that's me. I didn't realize you were ace, newly found your content. Do you mind discussing your experience of being ace a little bit? I don't really have time to get into that in the last 5 minutes of a stream, but I have lots of videos about it. So my experience with it is basically just, I have never been very interested in sexual interactions. I had no curiosity whatsoever, more or less, as a child. I always found it kind of gross. I thought that was normal. Found out it wasn't. Tried to experiment in college. Hated all of it. Discovered that I was asexual and I was somewhere on the ace spectrum. And sort of been that way ever since. I would say my main issues tend to be dating people that are not ace. And then they kind of think that, like, why don't you want to have sex with me? Why don't you want to have sex with me as much as I want you to have sex with me? And it's like, because I'm asexual. This is always how it's been. Like, I find it very funny when I date people. When I have, for a long time now, been very open about being ace. And then they're like, well, I just don't understand why you don't want to have sex with me. And it's like, I don't want to have sex because I don't want to have sex with anyone. Like ever. Like, that's me. That's part of whatever. Like, this is just silly. If we subscribe for the $25 on the main Patreon, are we eligible for the $1 on the voice chats? Yes. So I know it's a little bit confusing. I don't know how else to word it in a way that would be less confusing, but if you are on my Patreon at the $25 plus tier on the main Patreon, you can sign up for the $1 tier. You can turn on the voice chats, and you can do both. That was my way of making it so that way people didn't have to pay double to get like rewards from both Patreons, because it felt unfair. But I also wanted to charge adequately for my time. So anyway, so some people don't really care about like the bonus videos or the Discord chat or FetLife or photo shoots or whatever else it is I have on my Patreon. I have a lot of stuff actually. I've been doing it for a long time. I asked a 2-part question earlier that wasn't answered. Is it okay if I repeat it? Yes, please do. If I missed it, I'll try to get to it. Right now, for some reason, the YouTube chat is not scrolling super great, so it's easier for me to read like the purple pop-up chat that you guys are seeing, like, here. But yeah. Okay. And by the way, like, I'm probably going to stream for a little bit longer than I normally do, just because I feel like we're getting a lot of really good questions, and we didn't stream last week, so I want to make sure we get to everyone. It feels floaty and jelly-like for Subspace, yeah. I can go nonverbal. I can also kind of, like, I kind of like speak a made-up language as well. I don't know if that's a thing I want to admit to in public, but that's what happens sometimes with Subspace for me. Okay, I just saw a question. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. I see it again now. From Andrew. Hi, Evie. I'm new to BDSM and just began a DS relationship. My sub keeps inquiring about if I reach Dom space after scene. Okay, no, I did answer this earlier. And to be honest, I can't seem to figure out what it means. Okay, I think I I think I answered that one. I realized putting labels on myself such as slave, pet, little, etc. has me limiting myself by trying to fit into those boxes perfectly. Very common. Very, very common. Have you also experienced this? Do you prefer having the labels? I have let go really of having labels. I'm going to be honest. I try to think about more like broad categories of things I enjoy and less like I am this thing. Which is why, like, I don't worry about calling myself a switch, even though I'm a sadist, and I'm also, like, submissive, and I also like pet play, and I also like bondage. Because I also like so many different things that it's hard to just be like, I am this thing. Like, at some point, it's so many different labels that it's, like, it's just easier to say, I don't know, like, look at my list of kinks, you know? So I definitely have gone through the phase of, like, trying to find labels, holding onto those labels super tightly, and then now kind of letting go of those labels. Like, on my FetLife account, I don't have any label for myself, actually, at all. It is not a brag. It's just a fact. I just don't have any label for myself at all on FetLife. Because I just fit into so many different categories, and I don't want to try and live up to an expectation of, like, this is what a service sub does. This is what a masochist does. I must play at every party. I must do a scene in public. I must do this. I must do that. Like, I've just really tried to let go of that, and I found that, like, the broad labels can be helpful for, like, finding a partner or, like, quick conversations, but I don't feel like they're really helpful for me. Like, yes, if I'm looking for a play partner and I'm going to an event or I'm posting a personal ad or I'm on a dating app or something, saying that I am primarily a submissive that enjoys, you know, heavy bondage and light masochism. I actually don't know what I say, but essentially I'm a submissive oriented person that enjoys service, heavy bondage, light masochism, and I also have a sadist side that comes out for the right people. Basically, that's what I end up saying. Is helpful for, like, those starter conversations, but I try to not, like, hold myself up to certain expectations of, like, if I'm a real masochist, I would do this. Because I don't even really consider myself to be a masochist either. Like, it just sort of is like, pain can be fun sometimes. Catharsis can be nice sometimes, but that's it. I'm not going to be able to go to an event for a while, so my labels are mostly a journal of my kink interests. Yeah, it can be good to sort of just, like, keep in mind of, like, these are the things that I'm into, but it can make people feel boxed in or feel like they have to try and be something that maybe is not for them. Like, for a really long time on YouTube, I always wore, like, pet ears and a collar on camera because I felt like I had to do that because that was what, you know, people online expected of me, and I realized that I only really wanted to do that when I was, like, actively in the scene or, like, around with my partner, as opposed to doing it, like, performatively for the internet. So that's, like, one way that sort of changed for me on FetLife, at least. Well, it is nice, at least for a long time, FetLife only let you choose one role, I think is what they call them on FetLife. And now I think you can pick, like, 3 or 5. I think you can pick 5 roles and, like, 3 different sexuality labels, which is cool. I don't know anywhere else that does that, which is helpful. Mostly because I've started doing MS and I've had a friend tell me things I do or don't do that aren't slave-like, and it's got me questioning myself and trying to be a good slave, mess with my brain, lol. Okay, listen to me, my dear friend Pear. I went to a conference in November that had a very large subsection of it was the MS community and, like, masters and slaves. And I went to a class, I don't remember if it was the imposter syndrome class, or I think it was the imposter syndrome class I took, where there were so many stories of people that I know have been going to these events for a long time, that are in long-term MS relationships, that are well-known in the community, or organizers or educators, and almost all of them had a story of a, like, I went to an event with my master, and when we were there, he asked if I wanted fruit snacks or chips, and I said I wanted an orange, and then afterwards, or while I was gone, the other masters and dominants at the table, scolded my dom because why did he let his slave choose something besides the 2 options that she was given? She is not really a slave, blah, 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 but she's controlling the relationship. She's top from the bottom, blah, blah, blah. And what they didn't realize is that eating fruit and not eating sugar or snacks was like one of the core things they were working on in the dynamic, and her picking an orange was actually a really big deal because it was actually a positive step towards building up a larger goal in the MS relationship they both shared, and yada yada yada. And always these people being judgmental about how a slave talks, how a slave acts, what choices the slave does or doesn't make, how masterly the master is. And it's all fucking bullshit. An MS relationship is not a group activity where everyone outside of the relationship gets to dictate how it should look like on the inside. So I am really happy that you found a relationship that works for you, and I hope you're happy in that MS, because the only thing that matters, and remind yourself of this occasionally, is am I acting in the way that my master expects me to? Fuck what other people think. If your master doesn't care if you swear, if he doesn't care about you walking in front of him, if he doesn't care about you using a title with him or not, that's him. He's the master. He gets to decide what he wants or not from his slave. This is not a committee. A committee does not decide what the slave does or not. And if you swear without a swear jar, if you wear whatever clothes you want to wear, if you pick out your outfits in the morning, who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? They shouldn't. Because why are you paying more attention to other people's relationship than your own? What's your slave doing? I hope she's being perfect. If you're going to, stones glass houses. All right. I'll monitor you next time. Well, the next time your slave rolls eyes behind your back, the next time she picks out a Diet Coke instead of water, the next time she corrects you and say master butt, No. Yeah, it really is one true way syndrome. That really affects MS relationships a lot. I find is a lot of people are like, my master's like this, and like, masters don't use safe words, and slaves don't have limits, and blah, 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 and it's all bullshit. If your master says, we're going to use a safe word. If your master says, I want to know what your limits are. If your master says, you can leave the relationship at any time, and guess what? Still MS, he's making the choices. Or I'm talking about he because I'm thinking of the specific relationship, but they, whatever gender, doesn't matter. Mistress, master, major domo, whatever fucking word you want to use. I said she. No, I don't know what word I ended up using, but the couple I was thinking of in my head was a male master and a female submissive. So. But yeah, it's just it's so dumb. It's why do you devote so much energy to how masterly or slavely somebody else's things were? There was even one story of an MS couple that had been together for probably, 30 years or something, where the master had developed a number of health issues, and they were over at somebody else's house, and I'm the details of the story are all very different than, the broad premise is the same, the details are entirely different. They were over at a friend's house for a meeting or something, and the master started to have a medical event while at the house. It was low blood sugar, let's say. And the slave took over, as was indicated by their protocol and the way that was expected of her, to all right, he's showing signs of low blood sugar. I'm going to go to the car. I'm going to get a snack. I'm going to give him sugar for right now. I keep, little caramels or whatever in my pocket. I'm going to give him a caramel. I'm going to tell him, all right, master, sit down in this chair. I'm going to go to the car. I'm going to get the stuff. Don't move. And because she was being so direct and bossy to take care of her master's medical needs in the way that he told her to do originally, after this event was over, after everyone went home, they apparently went ahead and were kind of gossiping and talking behind their back a little bit, and was we need to talk about how your slave talks to you. We need to talk about how your slave behaves. They were upset that a slave was acting in accordance with what their master had told them and how they should act, and they needed a firm hand, and that's what they wanted from their slave. So really, in the day, what fucking matters, the point is, what matters is what your master wants. What your master says. Not the committee, not other masters, not the community. What you want. What feeds you. What makes your relationship feel good. The end. That's it. That is it. even when I'm specifically asked for advice, I'm like, doing X like Y has always worked for me, but your mileage may vary. There isn't any one true way. And that's how it should be, right? That's how it should be. Like, it's never one size fits all. Like, there's the broad strokes about like consent, not playing outside your skill level, being honest with your partners, like, you know, respecting a no, being able to listen to people's boundaries, being able to have boundaries yourself. Like, there's kind of the broad strokes of like, this is a good idea for everyone to do. But outside of that, the actual implementation of kinks is those things, and then whatever your own personal style is. That's it. It's basically a BDSM homeowners association. That is true. All right. But they said your slave, doesn't this acknowledge that they have no say in gossiping? I mean, you'd think, but like some people fucking act like they should be on the committee of everyone else's MS relationships. Like, actually, you're not being masterly and slavely enough to be part of our MS group. Because every scene has to have fucking drama. Okay, I don't know why somebody's asking me in the chat about English discipline and belts. But I do, like, my Spanish is rusty, but I can still read it fairly well. And I don't know why you're asking me about English discipline. Anyways, I think that's going to be it for today, guys. On that note. Let me see here for my stream schedule. We will definitely be back next week. 16th, I think I'll be gone. 23rd we'll be back, and then 30th we'll be back. So we'll just miss one Friday this month for the holiday. And then on the 23rd, maybe drinking some alcoholic eggnog. Can't say for sure. And I will hopefully have decorations up in the back. I would also really like to, again this year, we haven't done this yet. I would really like to set up another couple of days for a stream schedule, not only for playing Cyberpunk, but I also want to play, remember last year we played the Christmas, it was like the Christmas puzzle game, right? It was like the I Spy game, the Christmas I Spy game. That was really fun. I want to play one of those again. Anyways, that's going to be it for tonight, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Please like the stream, subscribe if you're not subscribed, if you're just lurking in the chat, and there will be another video out this weekend. Again, thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are so wonderful. Have an amazing start to your holiday season, an amazing start to your December. And I will very quickly... Hi. Would you like to say goodbye to the people? Would you like to say goodbye to the people, little dog? Hi, you. I love you so much. You're such a good girl. Why don't you say goodbye? Little girl. Little girl says good night. You say good night. Good night. Good night. There needs to be a Christmas song about Christmas dogs. That's my request.